Hello, I'm Greg, EG.IdrA Fields, and this is an EG replay review. Today we'll be looking at me versus Startail Bomber from IPL4. Here we have me as the red Zerg in bottom left, and Bomber as the blue Terran in the top right, and the map is Daybreak. This is the second set of our series, and I won the first map on Cloud Kingdom, and this was his map choice. This is kind of an odd map choice. It's not entirely a Zerg map, but it's a map that a lot of Zergs feel comfortable on, and it's very easy for Zergs to secure 3 bases early on. And it's just there's other maps in the map pool that are much more advantageous for Terran, such as Entombed Valley or something of that sort. So kind of an odd map choice from him, and this in kind of a look into tournament psychology, the fact that he chose a non-standard map kind of tells me that he has something special prepared for it, that he has a unique way of dealing with the map. Because if he wanted to just play standard fast expansion, Marine Hellion into Marine Tank, and just standard bio play, he would choose one of the maps that was more well suited for it. So I knew he was going to do something odd going into this game, and it actually turns out he ends up going into a into a mech-based play style, something that you don't see too often right now. And we'll look at how I try to deal with it, and some of the very unique things he does with it that actually make it very hard to deal with. He actually does a timing attack with this build, which is something you usually don't see. Mech, particularly tank-based mech, as he ends up doing, is much more powerful when you wait and go into the long game. As the upgrades stack up, your army grows very quickly in power as you add on more and more units. The tanks, with their high range and splash damage, as well as the Thor splash damage against air, it kind of multiplies as your army grows. So the timing attack he does is very strange. Also in part because you have very limited mobility with mech. So if you actually move out, you're pretty committed to an attack. You can't just run back and defend. And we'll see that I try and take advantage of that and how that works out for me, and also how he actually deals with it from the Terran point of view. So we can see he's again opening Reactor Hellion, putting down that very quick command center. This is kind of a blunder by me. I should have had a queen blocking that ramp. Just a very bad mistake there. Should not have allowed that to happen. And so he gets 2 Hellions in my main and does a ton of damage to all of my drones. Does end up losing these Hellions, however, not before more than sufficient damage is done. And luckily for me, he didn't actually have any more Hellions in production right away. Had he gotten another 2 Hellions in there, that would have been very, very bad. Would have done much more damage. As is, we still end up with a 12 Harvester lead. However, at this point in the game, ZvT, particularly with a 4-queen opening, you'll generally have a much greater Harvester lead than that. So still pretty bad for me. And here he gets another 2 Hellions in, does a little bit of damage. However, I have the queens blocking the ramp this time. Should have done that in the first place. Just kind of a mistake by me. But now I'm pretty well secured versus that, particularly once the Spine Crawler gets up. That will scare those Hellions off. Oh, but again, I kind of mess up. I don't have any queens on that ramp there, so he does get another handful of Hellions in, which is really, really unfortunate, especially given that I don't have Surgeon Speed just yet. However, I do manage to stabilize this sooner or later, and you'll see there's not too much you can do. You just have to abuse angles and try and cut him off. Take advantage of the fact that you have creep here and prevent him from doing too much damage. You're just trying to limit your losses at this point. And there, drone surround does manage to clear off the rest of the Hellions. However, he already has a 3rd command center on the way. He already has 2 factories up. So he ended up in a very good situation out of that. He got more than enough drone kills for that to be worthwhile. That being said, I have stabilized. I'm starting to head towards upgrades. I'm getting my 3rd hatchery production. I have a pretty good drone count. The fact that I delayed my gas so much and I had the initial 2 queens and just the pure drone production does mean that I already have a pretty strong economy, despite the fact that I took those really heavy losses early on. So it's not an absolutely unwinnable situation. And here, as I said, starting the transition into mech, already got that 3rd orbital up, so a very strong economy, as Bomber always manages to secure for himself. Also, the double upgrades on the way from me. As soon as those start, I will begin my lair. Also, I see that he is continuing Hellion production because he lost all of the Hellions that he had early on. All the Hellions that he ran into my base that he attacked my natural with, he lost those, and he still has an additional 5 Hellions. So I know that something is up. I know that he is producing way more Hellions than you do off of a normal Hellion expansion. So I put down that immediate 2nd Spine Crawler, also start circling production. make sure I have this queen out here, and I'm starting another queen in order to wall this off and prevent his Hellions from doing too much more damage or from trying to run by. Also putting down a Roach Warren to complete the wall in to some extent. And versus mech play, the general consensus amongst Zerg players, the best way to deal with it right now is to do some kind of aggression with roaches while heading out towards Blue Horde. And that was really, really good for me. Obviously, Zerglings surround on the Hellions while they were on creep and while he wasn't looking at them. So I got a bunch of very efficient kills there. And that pretty much nullifies the threat of any kind of Zergling attack early on. So that makes me feel much more safe right now. Allows me to produce a bunch more drones and also to go out and try and take that third base. However, he still does have enough Hellions that that's not likely to happen until I actually have some roach production out. And here we can see his third command center coming down, already taking that. That's the benefit of having these Hellions out. The Hellions give him really good map control, even though I have pretty good creep spread and I can try and surround that. Very difficult for me to actually kill off all those Hellions and to get out here and be aggressive against this third base. So more often than not, Terrans will just leave that third orbital in their main. They won't be able to take that third, but in this situation, he is able to. And here, starting roach production, I realize that he's got those blue flame Hellions. I'm going to need the roaches to push those back and to actually take my third base, which is of most importance. So I just go ahead and build some roaches. Also, producing an overseer, going in and checking if it's just blue flame into bio, or if he is actually headed for mech play. And upon seeing mech play, I will continue roach production, switch into immediately getting the roach speed upgrade, and realize that I am going to have to commit to roaches as he's going mech, and obviously you don't want to be playing off of Ling Infestor or Ling Muta versus mech. And they're a very good move by him, taking out that drone, delaying my third base once again. And see, his third base is already done before mine has even started. That's a pretty huge disadvantage for me. It's the benefit of early Hellion play. They give you so much map control, particularly if you're not opening roaches immediately. They're finally managing to get down the third base, also putting this down at the same time. That's a very good tactic. If one of your expansions is delayed for that long, you'll often have pretty big mineral buildup, so it's worthwhile to just go ahead and put down 2 bases at once. That's kind of a way to catch up back into the economic game. Also, as I said, the way to abuse mech is the mobility. So as we can see, I'm getting both of the overload drop upgrades. Use that to supplement my roach pressure. Be able to attack head on into here or into here while dropping him at the same time. It's very difficult for Terran to deal with that just because they don't have the mobility with mech that they do with bio. So very good situation for me if I manage to get to that stage of the game where I can be aggressive. But as I said, he already has these 5 factories in production. He's got a bunch of units out. He's keeping them pretty mobile. He's not setting up a big defensive front anywhere. He's not really playing for the turtleneck game like you will see a lot of Terrans do with mech. He is actually going to go ahead and move out for a timing attack, which is an incredibly odd decision because most Terrans just don't do that. Usually you can get overwhelmed if you don't have the sufficient tank count, or counterattacks are very, very powerful versus you just because there's no way that your mech army can make it back to your base in time to defend it. So a very unusual decision by him here, not something I was expecting at all, and I actually don't see it coming. He's doing a very good job of controlling that watchtower, and my overlords are spread out to watch for Hellion drops. They're around his perimeter, not looking for a head-on frontal attack, just because that is so unusual. Here you can see I'm prepared to start up my aggression. I have these Zerglings out here for a little counterattack. I'm also loading up a drop at the exact moment he moves out. Not sure if this is really good or bad for me. If he had moved in and engaged and I just tried to defend it with roaches, it would have been a very close battle. As is, he catches me as I'm moving out to be aggressive, so we're kind of forced into a base trade situation. We can see very, very little defense here. He's sending out all of his units immediately to join his attack, and he just doesn't have that much in the way of defense, just these 2 Thors here. And Thors on their own versus roaches are not the most efficient matchup you can ask for. And there the drop unloads right as attack comes in. I immediately evacuate all my drones and start putting down more spine crawlers. Very, very important thing to do in base race situations, obviously. Put down defense, prevent your base from dying as quickly as theirs dies. And here, moving in for the attack, have roaches swing up from a frontal attack, as well as the ones from the main. However, these SCVs are just tanking too well, and those Thors are too powerful. He does manage to hold off the attack pretty efficiently, but he's lost a ton of SCVs. And at the same time, while he is pushing in, I'm slowly whittling down his force, and once the spine crawlers step up and my additional roaches join the battle, I will be able to clear this up. This is the problem with Mech. He can't really reinforce this that quickly. Even if I weren't attacking him, it'd be very difficult for him to reinforce it. So this army is pretty much what he's stuck with, whereas I'm constantly reinforcing and constantly putting new units into the battle and chipping away at his army. So here we can see he's left without a second base, with almost no SCVs at his main, and only one full base running. However, he does have 3 orbitals with a 4th on the way, so mules will kind of allow him to catch back up economically pretty quickly, despite the fact that I have a full 3-base economy running. If we look at the income tabs, more than a 30 harvester lead, and nearly double his income for the time being, but once mules start to land, that will change pretty drastically. And just continuing roach production, roaches are by far the most efficient unit in this stage of the game versus Mech, so there's no reason to really build anything else unless you want Zerglings for counterattack. You can mix in infestors if they get too Thor heavy. This also is a very odd move by him, kind of just donating 3 Thors, walking them across the map like that. He was hoping that his initial army would still be alive and he could just supplement them with his Thors. Obviously, I did manage to kill it before they joined in the battle, so almost 3 kills for me. And this kind of gives me a bit of an advantage at this stage in the game. Killing off those Thors is a pretty big windfall for me. I'm also putting down my 4th base. I'm getting my 2nd upgrade. I already have 3 full bases running, and he's still just trying to reestablish his economy. However, as we can see, he is already getting up to level 3 upgrades. That's one thing Bomber is incredibly good about, is just focusing on upgrades and economy. He's one of the best macro Terrans with respect to his decision making in terms of things like that. He always has the upgrade advantage. He always has a good economy to back it up. And here, a bunch of roaches just trying to move in and poke around, do some aggression. Also heading up towards infestors. Well, I will want to head towards Hive eventually. You do need Broodlords versus the late game Terran army. You just can't fight efficiently versus it with ground units. However, at this point it's very scary, as I know he has pretty good production. I see how many factories he has. I know he already has a standing Thor tank army, and you have to respect that. However, looking at the replay, I probably could have headed up towards Hive Tech at this point. It's not really a huge army. I do have a lot of roaches, but this was just absolutely terrible. He just happened to catch a line of drones on the way in with Blue Hellions and killed a massive amount of them. Had I had this 4th base up and running, had that not happened, this game could have turned out very, very differently. As I'm getting Neural Parasite, I have a bunch of infestors on the way. I already had a pretty good roach army with good upgrades. Definitely could have been very different had I had a full running 4th base at this point in the game. Also, not going Hive just yet. That's a bit of a mistake by me. You want faster Hive than this versus Mech play. It allows Terran to be very, very passive and feel very comfortable if they don't see a Hive Tech, because as long as they have pretty good defense versus drops, as he is aware of drops, he doesn't have the greatest defense versus it, so putting up planetaries. If you have good defense versus drops and counterattacks, it's pretty hard for a Lair Tech Roach army to actually attack you head on. And there we see I am heading up towards Broodlords, but very, very slowly. And he's obviously going to have time to max on +3 weapon Mech before that, which is not a situation you want to be in as Zerg. It's just so incredibly difficult to fight versus that with a ground army. Lots of infestors is very useful, obviously. However, he has enough tanks that Neural Parasite isn't going to be too useful. It's just I won't be able to get the infestors into range quickly enough to do any kind of real damage. And this attack moving in, I realize that he does have too many tanks for me to fight with Neural Parasite, so I am going to try and just burrow and go in and just surround everything with infested Terrans. However, we'll see pretty shortly that doesn't work out too well. It is the best decision in this scenario. Fungal obviously doesn't do too much for Mech, and as I said, tank range is just too much for Neural Parasite. He would target down the infestors too quickly. So burrowing, going in for infestors is the best option. However, as soon as I'm about to get into range, unfortunately, he scans, and that puts an end to that. And without the use of the infested Terrans, there's absolutely no way to break this setup with roaches. So absolutely perfect timing by him, but a couple of just really unlucky situations for me where I lost those drones there and where I lost that initial infestor engagement kind of swing the game in his favor. And let's watch all my roaches die. That was an EG replay review. If you enjoyed this content, please go to evilgeniuses.net and check out a bunch of our other videos and content there. Thank you for watching.